Everybody, thank you for once again coming out to the Generational Wealth Killer. And first and foremost, before we get started, we like to introduce ourselves. If you don't know me, my name is Jason Matthews. I am CEO of Matthews Financial and Insurance Solutions. I'm a member of the $1 Million Roundtable and the author of the best-selling book, The Age of Self-Reliance. If you haven't picked up the book, you can pick it up on Amazon. It's a best-selling. Once again, I'm an author of The Age of Self-Reliance, and I'm going to pass this over to Thandiwe.
Absolutely. Make sure you get that. If you didn't get it on Amazon Prime Day, make sure you still have some time if you got 2-day shipping. So go ahead and get his book as well. Hello, everyone. My name is Thandiwe Cato. I'm a financial advisor at Matthews Financial and Insurance Solutions. I have a background in banking and finance, and my vision is really to help individuals make sure that they understand their wealth journey. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda today. So just some things that we'll be covering is we're going to give a market update. We're going to tell you why the government is after your money and some of the biggest loopholes as far as wealth transfer, new government proposals, and then we will end it off with telling you potential solutions, because a lot of the times we don't want to just talk about the problem. We want to make sure that we provide you with some solutions as well. So I'll go ahead and kick it off. I'll pass it to Jason.
Definitely. So let's just talk about, before we get deep into it, what's happening as a market and economic update. We see a lot of things happening. We want to just talk about what we're seeing, and so you can have a better analysis of what's going on as we get deeper into this. So first and foremost, we have the increase in the child tax credit coming out. So if you have a child below the age of 18, if your kids are adult, you're out of it. But if you have kids 18 and under, you're starting receiving around July 15th your additional child tax credit for yourself. Additional thing we're also seeing right now is the aging population entitlements. As we're seeing right now, we are finally seeing the peak of baby boomers that's happening right now. So we're seeing the peak of baby boomers who are turning 62, which means they are jumping on top of entitlements, which includes Social Security, along with Medicare and Medicaid and other government entitlements. Also, what we want to do is look at the debt clock for what it is today. And what I'm about to go do is show you guys the U.S. debt clock today as well. So we have a better understanding of how the U.S. debt clock has jumped drastically right now. And so what we're going to do is just show you guys the U.S. debt clock, how it's jumped from before COVID to now where we're at over $28 trillion and still counting. And this is something we definitely have to consider. Right now, like we said, the average U.S. national debt is $28 trillion. The average debt for taxpayers, not everybody pays taxes in the U.S., but the debt for every taxpayer is $226,000 to take off the U.S. national debt, which is a huge number that we all have to just understand going into this presentation. Let's go back and share your screen, Thandiwe. As well. Perfect. Also, the U.S. budget deficit for the fiscal year topped over $2 trillion. Which is a huge number, is astronomical number that we have fiscal year debt increased by $2 trillion, but the monthly deficit for May was the lowest it's been all year. Government spending fell while tax revenues jumped the most since last January, which is a huge number. And right now we all see currently a labor shortage. You know, I went to Wendy's a couple weeks ago in Stockton after my son's baseball game, and they say you could not eat in the restaurant because we have a labor shortage and we don't have enough people to work the inside of the restaurant, only for the drive-thru. Have you experienced anything like that, Thandiwe?
Absolutely. And when, like, I just noticed a lot of hiring signs and things up now. So it's definitely more common that we're having a labor shortage, and that we need to, incentivize more people to be out in the workforce, especially if we want to continue. One thing I will also say is the debt clock that we're looking at. If you haven't looked at that website before, it tells you the different types of debt and breaks it down. As you can see, it looks like a time clock, but it just tells you how much of an issue, especially in the US, and how much debt as an economy that we've continue to have over, the past couple of years, but especially with everything that went on with COVID, we've had increasingly more debt as well.
Definitely. And we can also see that right now with the inflation numbers. We see it with the inflation number on used cars, on lumber, house prices going up. So in food right now, we're seeing this huge amount of inflation that we haven't seen in a long period of time. And we're seeing that due to one, the labor shortage, and also because of all the money that we have printed. So let's go up next. Why is the government after your money is the question that we should be looking at. So we're going to look at this as a point of view of a baby boomer, millennials, and everybody who's American citizen who might be paying taxes in America. So Cato, we go ahead and get started. Tell them why is the government after their money.
Absolutely. So this is just also the point of view of just through the point of view in general. I know it says millennials. But as far as the first thing is 15 million people receiving unemployment benefits. So that's absolutely huge. For a lot of you who don't know, that will be running out in September, supposedly, because what we know even about the eviction moratorium is it was supposed to end the end of this month. But we also know that's continued or been extended an additional month. They said it was the last time, but we don't know. So all these different programs that are now allowing us to get money are actually putting the government more in debt. So they're looking to essentially get that money back. So the national debt at $28 trillion by 2025, and it's estimated to jump to $50 trillion. That's a lot of debt if you really think about it. So not just with different stimulus programs that have gone on more recently, but if you think of all the other different things that have gone on as far as, for student loans and things being pushed back as far as payments, that's just going to increase the amount of debt that our economy is going to be able to take on. And then as far as the infrastructure plan, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So
definitely, one thing Joe Biden's been talking about is he wants to do a new infrastructure plan that's they're negotiating, which is going to be between supposedly depends on how they do it between $2 trillion and $5 trillion, which is a lot of money. And we see the importance of an infrastructure plan and making sure our infrastructure is strong. Just in the news today, where you have that building that collapsed in Miami, where they say 90 people are still missing. I think I read last time is a state of emergency for the state of Florida due to that building collapse. And we don't want to happen anywhere else. We know earthquakes are happening, more storms. We know, so we're trying to add an infrastructure plan, and with that infrastructure plan, it's going to cost us more money. So where do we get the money from? Is the question, and the question is, we get it from you, and that's where we're going to get the money to pay for this national debt and infrastructure and all this other unemployment benefits. So when we look at this, the biggest, since we're going after people like you, the government and politicians really don't want to just take money and have you get upward, kick them out of office in 2 years if they're in Congress, Senate 6 years, or switch from Republican to Democrat or back and forth for presidency. They need to generate revenue coming in. And the easiest way to do that is by taxes. But they don't want to make it obvious where all the American people are just upset about tax increases. So the easy way of doing that is to increase taxes without people noticing. And the best way to do that is closing loopholes that people don't pay attention to on an everyday basis. And one of the biggest loopholes in the transfer of wealth is what we call the step up in basis. Now, I want to put it in there real quick and comment. How many of you guys are familiar with step up in basis? Please say yes or no in the comments if you are familiar with the step up in basis. Yeah, a few people. Good. So for the few people who are not familiar with step up in basis, I'm going to go a little bit deeper with the people who might not know with it. So what step up in basis is a tax loophole for wealth. It is the best transfer of wealth that happens. So what the step up in basis does is allows us to transfer property, stocks, investments and non-qualified plans, and real estate to our heirs with a huge tax benefits. So when we have, I'm drawing my beautiful house. Now my son draws better than me for it, but please forgive me for my drawing. Usually, if let's say our parents buy a house, say for 100,000, and let's say we buy from them that the day that they a day before they die, say for $1 million, which is common here in the Bay Area. That means you will have to pay capital gains on $900,000 if you purchase the house the day before they buy on all the gains. What step up in basis does is allows us to buy if instead of buying that house before our parents die, and that house is in the same situation where our parents buy it for 100,000, and when they die, instead of waiting for that day, we wait for the day that they die. That house is worth $1 million. We get to have that house for $1 million without paying any capital gains or any taxes at all. And this is what we call the step up in basis. And this is the greatest transfer of wealth that we have in the United States, is that what we're going to do is transfer our property onto our heirs, and they can receive that benefits tax-free. And doesn't have to be real estate. Let's say you own Chevron stock. I have clients who own Chevron stocks from their grandparents, or any type of stocks or mutual funds, or any investments. This is a great strategy for them to receive the benefits and take advantage of step up in basis, where they get to transfer this wealth, pay no taxes, and now they're instant millionaires and never had to pay taxes just because of this tax loophole.
So I'll go back to my screen. And just one thing I'd like to add, Jason, that was a great way to break it down, because I know it can be, again, a bit intimidating concept. But when we did our other virtual seminar, and we talked about how the 1031 exchanges were also potentially going to be threatened. These are all things that are threatening the equity that you're able to transfer over to other family members, whereas a lot of people, especially when it came to real estate, were investing so that they would have they would be able to take advantage of all the tax benefits that they are. So I think that's definitely going to be, if that does go through, a huge change, and it might also affect the way that people look at how they're going to invest in certain vehicles as well.
Yeah. So with this new infrastructure plan, what's going on, we're seeing with the infrastructure plan, getting rid of the Trump tax cuts that Joe Biden talked about. There's a couple government proposals for new taxes. And on the proposal, we have two things that looks like they're going to get rid of the step up in basis for many Americans. Now, if you're here in the San Francisco Bay Area, LA, New York, Boston, or on the coastal states, you're probably going to be affected with these new loopholes the most, because right now what they're saying is they want to get rid of step up in basis. And based on it, what they're saying is, if for anybody who is single, you have $1 million exception. And if you're married, there's a $2 million exception for if your house or your investments or anything, if anything above that, you're going to have to pay capital gains. Also proposed right now is an increase in capital gains. Currently, it's 39.6%. But if you include investment income tax, it's going to be 43.6%. And that means in California, if you have capital gains, you could be paying over 50% in capital gains taxes on the property that you received from your mother, grandmother, mom or dad, or anybody, family member you might have, due to the getting rid of the step up in basis and you paying an astronomical huge amount in taxes on the transfer of wealth. And this is getting proposed right now with the Joe Biden administration on this tax plan.
And we had, I think the slides that were a little bit earlier talked about how there was, these tax credits that are going to be in place, especially the child tax credit. But on the other side, the government still needs to get their money from somewhere. And especially the amount of people who got into investments this year, you have to realize how that may be taxed later down the line, especially when you're doing short-term versus long-term capital gains. So short-term being you're holding and not selling before 1 year, long-term being selling after 1 month, and how that's going to be taxed differently. So just making sure that you keep that in mind, because the amount that you're able to gain, you have to pay taxes on them. So make sure that you do know. These new proposals are going to be huge, not only affecting the capital gains tax, but also for high income earners as well. So I'll go to our next slide here. So these are just some potential solutions, right? So we talked about all the different things that are going to, the government's coming for their money, but we also want to make sure that we equip you with some potential solutions, especially because our focus was the step up in basis being threatened, and really some solutions that we could propose to you. So the first one is just coming out of pocket for the money. So yes, if you do have the money to pay for the taxes, go ahead and do that. Nobody is very excited to pay for taxes, but that is one of the solutions that you can propose. Another is, looking towards family, seeing if you could get a loan to pay those taxes, seeing if you can pull your money together to pay for it, things like that. You want to talk about the other ones, Jason?
Yeah, and also remember right now, if you're just coming out of pocket to pay for those taxes, you're coming out of your savings account, which is right now getting less than 1%. Interest rates right now are historically low, so you're saying, hey, I got this money put to the side, I have no taxes, I'm putting this money to the side, it's not gaining any interest, but I know it's going to be there for my family, which could be a huge comfort for many people. And the question is, how many of us, if we have a property over $1 million, which is common in Oakland, where we are right now, Berkeley, have $300,000, $200,000 just to pay in capital gains tax? And the question is, do you want to give that all that money of liquid cash to the government, or can it work better for you? The problem with your family getting a loan is, do all your family members have good credit? How is the credit market at the time you pass away? In 2008, I remember during the financial crisis, even when people had A1 credit, they could not get a loan. The banks tightened up lending standards. So we have to be very careful thinking that our family could just, they can get a loan in 90 days and pay the taxes and they'll be okay. Oftentimes it might be a process, especially if we have a time where the economy is tightened at that time. But we could get a loan, which is great, and it might be great rates, but with this talk of inflation, we could see interest rates go up, and it might be cost a little bit more for them to service that debt. And can your family even afford to get that loan at that time as well? Another thing is or just tell your family, sell the asset, right? If it's a home, do your family really want to just sell that family property that they're supposed to be a family property? Those great things. I see my friend Steve Peterson, shout out if he watches this video, but his family lives in Brookfield. Grandma lives there forever. That's the family house. When things happen, to get together on Thanksgiving, get together on Christmas, to have their family meetings here. That's a family house. And sometimes if we sell a family house, it can be detrimental for the breakup of the family. Also, let's say this is a great asset that has great dividends. Let's say your family has an AT&T stock that gives out 7% dividends right now. Do your family want to give up that 7% dividend and have to sell that stock because they have to pay the capital gains? It's just something, we have to think about those things. And the last one, I pass it back to you, Thandiwe, on what other ideas people do.
So the last one is just planning in advance, right? So just making sure that, you have the proper things in place. One thing that we don't have on here, one thing that we don't have on here as well, as far as life insurance, but also estate planning. And if you're thinking to yourself, I don't need estate planning, I don't have an estate, you do have an estate, and you need to make sure that your assets and the things that you do have, they're going where they need to go. You don't want your family to have to go through probate, your family to have to be fighting for different things about who's supposed to get how much money and who liked who more, and the different things like that ultimately happens when somebody passes. So making sure that you have the life insurance to pay for those taxes, so that you don't have to put anyone in I don't want to say an awkward position when that time does come, and also having the estate planning piece as well. It's just super important to think ahead. All these solutions that we have, these three solutions here are, this is what happens after, right? Where we didn't plan. Whereas, if we plan in advance, yes, it's going to be a sad time when somebody passes and we have to take care of their estate and taxes and all that stuff that just isn't fun. But if we plan in advance, it can definitely run a lot smoother.
Yeah, we're definitely, you're trading pennies in for dollars, and that's what we have to think about. We're giving a dollar a penny right now for dollars in the future, just with the power using life insurance, just to pay for the taxes. So let's say I don't have 400,000 for taxes right now out of pocket. Maybe I have 20, 30,000 for taxes. Guess what? I can plan accordingly, give that money to insurance company, a lump sum, and they might give me 3, 4, or 5 times that amount. If something does happen to me, my family's taken care of. Also, proper planning doesn't mean just for death. It can be for sickness as well. I was talking to one of my clients. She's talking about her mother had a stroke and she has to go to a home. In that home is going to cost her right now about 5, 6 grand a month. She's like, I don't know how I'm going to get 5 or 6 grand a month. The only way we can do that is selling my mother's house here in Oakland. Who wants to sell their mother's house because they have to? And if you do have to sell it, yes, right now it's the top of the market. But do we know if the market's always going to stay on top? Do we think the market's going to eventually drop? Maybe. But do we have one to force sale and only go to the first buyer? Or do we want to have to go to the highest bidder because we have the options to patiently wait for the price that we want? And without proper planning, oftentimes we sell assets because not at the best time or the height of the market or the height of getting the best deal possible. We do it because that's the quickest deal as well. So I think planning is just so important.
Absolutely. And so as we start to wrap things up, please, if you have any questions or you want to put anything into the chat to ask us about the presentation, please go ahead and do so. And we'll just give you some time to do that.
Also, what I would say while you guys put in the chat is if you don't like that you're trying to get rid of step up of basis, I think you as a taxpayer in the United States, what you should do is make a recommendation and send a letter to your congressperson, your senator saying, please do not increase step up in basis. This is a great way for my family to transfer wealth. I have worked hard to have purchased my home, to buy stocks, and I prefer for it to go to my grandkids and to my children or to a charity of my wishes instead of the government. So please write a letter to your congressperson. If you're here in Oakland, I believe you're talking to Barbara Lee. You're write a letter to your senator, I believe Dianne Feinstein, and to the president. Say, I do not want step up in basis to be to get lost. Is a great way to transfer wealth. And I know we have tons of Americans who have worked hard, who wants to keep the wealth they have generated for their families and not for the government to decide on what to do with those funds.
Absolutely. And one thing I'd also like to add is on the last slide that we had, it was really focusing on the planning piece and making sure you plan in advance. And a lot of times I feel like, I talk to people and they're talking about how busy they are and how it's not a priority and that they have other things to do. Really making your financial health a priority will definitely help you in the long run. You just need to sit down and do it. And then also actively make sure you follow through with those steps as well. And I see a question come up from Darren. Do you suggest that people use living trust in terms of advanced planning? The short answer is, we can both answer it. So the short answer is yes. And you want to make sure that you sit down. We're not legal counsel, but we do have the resources to connect you with those people. And they will tell you how to set up your estate to make sure that everything runs smoothly with your family, who you'd want certain things to go to. I usually call estate planning the instructions. So you want to make sure that you have that in place and talk to an estate planning attorney to do that and set up a living will. And one thing I'll also add is if you are going online to use some of the platforms that are there, you may get what you pay for. I'll just say that. So taking the time to really make sure you work with someone, pay for it now, just so everything's running smoothly, is definitely worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's nothing. What they say, a penny short is a dollar cheaper is a phrase for that. I know I messed up the phrase, but I think that's so true. I think oftentimes we want to be a penny short for a dollar, and we want to just save a couple of dollars when we have assets that are worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, which makes no sense to be cheap when we're trying to protect $1 million asset. That's why you always get a lawyer when you get a lawsuit filed against you, for you to have the additional protection. And it's usually cheaper to have an attorney on the front end compared to the back end. And also with a living trust, it does not help us just while we're living, dead or passed away. It helps us while we are living. Oftentimes, like I said, I had a client today whose mother had a stroke. The living trust is needed for when we have strokes, cancer, and sickness, when we become incompetent. Right now, she's debating with her family members on the care of her mother. Should her mother be at home, or should her mother stay at a home? That issue, based off of the living trust, it would have made the best decisions ahead of time for her, without her bickering and having family arguments with her aunt and her sisters, and that family could possibly be broken up forever because of lack of planning.
Great. So we're going to go ahead and go to our last slide. So if you enjoyed our presentation, you've come multiple times, you have questions, and you want to get something that's more one-on-one and catered towards you, again, we just give this knowledge in a general manner, but if you'd like to meet one-on-one with them, please either call us or email us to set up an appointment. We will, if you signed up through the Eventbrite link, we'll also be sending that out for you to schedule an appointment as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, I see someone. Yes, go ahead and buy the book off of Amazon. Thank you for joining us. Absolutely. So we will include that email just so you have our contact information, and please reach out if you have any further questions. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you in the future.
Definitely. Good evening, everybody. Enjoy your summer.
Good evening, everybody. Enjoy your summer.